how do you define identity? What makes you and not someone else? Or is that what identity means altogether, or is it something different? Like what is identity? Because that is like a contemporary understanding. I almost just spit it out because it was like the water I was drinking all the time. Like identity is just what makes you. Do you think that's an adequate representation of what it is? Is it like uniqueness, or is it something else?
Yeah, I think identity is. I think that's a good definition that I'm willing to use for this situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So each person has a sort of individual identity that separates them from everyone else.
Yeah, and obviously I think that is a statement that we'll never know the answer to truly, right? But that is worth like using as a definition for how we interact with the social systems and life that we are presented with.
Well, then in that case, is identity, like, even as a term, just sort of a social construct, like something that is human in nature? Like,
I think like that's kind of what I'm saying, is that is a possibility.
Okay.
A lot of things in my life that are quite philosophical. I'm starting to see I might answer some of your questions with just I don't care, because like to some extent like it doesn't
affect you.
Impact me if that's the truth or not, you know?
What's this?
Yeah, I guess we're talking about
Don't
whatever.
worry about it. We're just doing philosophical questions.
I just saw the table. I was like, I'll sit down. Why not?
Very Connor.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Do you need more people?
Oh yeah, if you wanna join, yeah, sure. It is a club after all, so I can interview both of you guys. You wanna?
It's up to Connor.
Up to you. We're talking about what identity means right now.
What does identity mean?
What is it?
Oh gosh. What club is it?
It's called Let's Question.
What if I'm not a student?
Oh, I don't care. I'm not a student either.
Oh. That works.
I graduated just last semester, so technically an imposter.
It's okay, now there's two. Now I'm the imposter.
How does it feel to be in the minority?
All right. So we were asking, like, is identity basically just uniqueness, like something that separates you from others, or is it something else? Or as it was Connor, as Connor was saying, he doesn't really care that much about what it is, and it might just be a social construct altogether.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, that's what you think too?
Well, it's definitely not what makes you unique, because it's just identity is identification. Is what you.
Well, don't they
really
identify
whatever.
you with like your fingerprints and stuff that makes you unique?
Right, but it's in the same way that you can identify yourself as you know racial identity, sexual
So I'm
identity,
like
things
standing
like
over
that.
you, like okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to me, I think like the combination of those identities is what is truly your identity, or that's how that most people would describe it, and that's the definition that I would use.
So the combination of all those characteristics he was talking about, like your sexual identity, your like
Racial
identity,
Sure.
your
Yeah.
like is it just a
Orientation.
list of them?
Sure.
Okay. So it is kind of what makes you unique, or does it just fit you in a
I guess
particular
that's
category,
true.
or
Right.
is it just like a particular category that you fit into?
In infinite many categories.
It's true, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Infinite many categories. It's like a deck of cards. Like,
Right.
Okay.
so, yeah.
So ultimately, it is what makes you unique then.
I guess to a certain extent.
Whereas
That's
you-
true. Yeah.
Okay, and we can go into two trails of thought here. Is uniqueness just an illusion, or
This is
You
awkward.
gotta
I'm
take
so
a call.
sorry.
No worries.
oh, no worries, dude. Or what was I gonna say? Or is your identity better I understood as what you do in the world rather than your kind of characteristics. So first of all, let's talk about, is identity, like, is uniqueness just a social construction, or are people actually unique, or are we just part of one big sort of organism?
I think both can be true, right?
Okay, why?
So, just as well, just as our planet plays a role in the solar system and in the universe as a whole, and is a part of the understanding of gravity and of, scientific constructs,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
But also has a unique identity to what constitutes what we call planet Earth, right? Like in its makeup of atmospheric and geological composition, but also, if we're going to talk about it from a science perspective, right, then those things make up its unique planetary identity, while it's also a part of the larger identity of the universe. And I think that's similar to how humans are uniquely identified, but also connected to a system.
Participate in the larger identity.
Exactly.
So that's actually really interesting. So in that case, then, identity is both like the particularities of yourself that are sort of bottom up, and the like larger identities
this
that you
is exactly
participate in.
how I see it. Yeah.
Okay, so like the groups maybe you're a part of, or the ideologies that you subscribe to, or something, or is that not a good representation? Or is it more just like the natural world that you exist biologically?
Both.
Okay,
Yeah,
both.
because I think like the more we try to define it, the more it proves that it is things that we believe that it isn't, or that are undefined. And I think mostly that just means within the natural world.
Okay. So ultimately, it's our place in the natural ecosystem. Is our identity, or is that a hypersimplification?
I think that's a hypersimplification.
That's fair. Yeah. Maybe I'm jumping to simplifications.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think to some extent, things are interacting, and I think like our social interaction and identity is connected to our identity as a human being, which I think is connected to the natural world, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's connected to the natural world. Can it be fully encapsulated in the natural world if needed? Like, could you take all of these sort of ideological identities or these group identities and just encapsulate them in what is ultimately the context of the natural world? Or or do those things exist somehow artificially or without explanation from nature?
It's a difficult question, because I think at the root of that question is the question of free will, really.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you chalk everything up
to
if you chalk all of our social ideology up to the natural world, all of our social personification and action up to the natural world, then you're essentially removing thought from those.
Yeah.
Right?
Like things are just playing out in a sort of mechanistic sense that has no real artificial choice.
And I think to answer the free will question, it's one of the questions that I say I don't care, because
Interesting.
I think like it doesn't benefit me to presume that I don't have free will. So I'm going to assume that I do have free will.
So you care to the degree that you're assuming that you have it, but you don't care about how the question is ultimately resolved?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. But like, if you had to guess, do you think you actually have free will, or does it truly not matter to you?
I think it truly doesn't matter. Like, I
Okay.
think. Well, if I had to guess, I think I truly do. But it's question everything, and I think like I shouldn't make assumptions about things that I don't know, and I think
Okay.
it's
Well-
just it's a confusing one.
But if you
Yeah.
do have
It's
free
really
will,
there's a lot of contradictions here.
yeah. But if you do have free will,
Right.
doesn't it change the way we look at that identity question, and if it can be encapsulated into the natural world or not? Like, doesn't it affect that question, like we were talking about?
Yeah.
So, should we just leave that and many other questions sort of unanswered or unanswerable, or should we try to build an axiom of free will and like try to build from there, or is that not worth doing?
Good question. Well, I'm sort of thinking that free will. I'm sort of thinking that free will is part of the natural world. So maybe the way I would describe it is like I'm trying to think about how to describe this philosophy.
Yeah. Is it sort of like everything is one being, including humans, and like free will is just like the universe talking to itself or something like that? Or trying to figure itself out? That's what I've heard before, so I was just putting that forward.
I've never thought of it like that. I think I wouldn't think of it like that,
Okay.
but you could. I don't think I like to think about it like that. But
Okay,
I
yeah.
think maybe how I would think about it is like wow, it is confusing. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I have an answer. I want
a
to,
difficult one.
but it's a difficult one. I think.
Do you feel like any conclusion you draw will lead you to things you don't like,
Well,
or just
yes,
or a sort of
Yes.
contradiction?
both. Yes,
Okay.
contradiction or things that I don't like.
Okay.
Um,
what are some of the things that you don't like that could result from any conclusion you draw?
So, like, a conclusion that I could draw is that you have free will, right?
Yeah.
And that if I make that determination and consider that the natural world does not play a role in your free will, or like, well, before I say that it does, right? So I'm like, basically, if I'm saying that what I want to be true but provides a contradiction, right, is I want your free will to be the reason for our role in the natural world, essentially being that our free will is what gives us identity within the natural world and a place within the natural world. But that presents contradiction because with that free will we have the opportunity to neglect and destroy the natural world.
Okay.
Right?
Well, it seems like there's an unavoidable part of that, because I mean you can just look around and there are people that are destroying the natural world.
Right.
So, do you attribute that to sort of the mechanistic outgrowth of the natural world that doesn't really have its own volition, that's sort of eating itself in this sort of self-destructive way? Or is that the people themselves making decisions that harm the natural world that they shouldn't make, or something like this?
Yeah, I think it's closer to that. I
To the
think
second
it's-
one?
Yeah.
Okay. So ultimately then, like you said before, even, that free will seems plausible to you.
Yeah.
But so the problem that you said, if you do accept free will, then I'm sorry. Could you reiterate the problem that you articulated?
The problem with free will is that, or like,
why wouldn't you just want to say, okay, yes, there is free will?
why wouldn't I just want to say, okay, yes, there's free will?
Did you articulate a problem about it? I'm sorry.
You mean like a while ago?
No, just
okay.
Just before. Is that what you were doing?
Well, I was kind of saying that the problem with free will and the natural world, right, is that I think free will, I want to believe that free will is what gives us purpose in this universe, or in this life, in this natural world,
like
right?
It gives us something to do, like we have decisions.
Like
to
it
make.
gives us, well, more than that even. I think like that is
some kind of freedom.
Yeah, and that is like what makes human beings like. Well, I think that's just like what I want to believe is that free will is what allows us to interact. Like it just is our role, the human being's role in the natural world, right? And by having free will, we are the ones who dictate the direction of the universe. Essentially, it's quite, in some ways, egotistical or like human-centered like view, right?
Okay, so maybe the problem you're running into is that it feels like almost egocentric to believe in free will.
Somewhat, and also, yes, that is a problem that I'm running into, and also in combination with that fact, the idea that like, if that's our role within the system, it seems overpowerful and seems wrong because we have the power as one part of the system to destroy the system.
Yeah.
Right?
But it seems like there are people that are destroying the natural world.
Yeah.
So, what do you make of that? Or is it?
So that's why it's what I want to believe, right? I want to believe that our free will is our place in the system, but I think that's contradicted by the fact that we use that role to harm the natural world as a species.
So that's contradicted by. But so it feels like it couldn't be true. Like it couldn't be the case that free will would give us the power to destroy the world if we wanted to. That just seems like almost wrong. Like it seems like something that wouldn't that wouldn't be constitutive of an ultimate balance.
Sure.
Of everything or something. It would just be like overbalanced. It would be tilted too far in one direction. Yeah. But then you can't. But it's hard to square that with the fact that people are actually destroying. And so, would you have to conclude in that case that nature is destroying itself, or would you have to swallow the pill of that we do actually have that weight of responsibility?
And then there's the other fact to consider that nature's not really destroying itself, right? Like, after the worst we could do at this point in history, would not destroy the natural world. It would drastically change it, right?
But it would keep going.
Right.
So, it's a good point.
You know, I think that's saying that we are destroying the natural world is quite an oversimplification.
That's a good point. Right. So maybe is that how you get out to say that we actually, even if we did have free will, we wouldn't even be capable of destroying anything.
Maybe that is a reasonable boundary.
So we might have free will, but we really don't have enough capability to do anything that would result in anything ultimately catastrophic, like in the longest possible sense. Mm-hmm. Okay, but it seems like even if we can't destroy everything for all time, like for example, the Nazis still did their fair share of work to make the world into something very unlivable. So I guess what do you make of that? Like sort of these totalitarian societies that might have been willed into a state of utter chaos and suffering. And maybe that's a very open-ended question.
Yeah, I think it is.
I think it is. I guess I'm just trying to, so yeah, we can't destroy everything for all time, which is good, because that would suck if we could, and it wouldn't make sense, like you were trying to say. It wouldn't make sense like you were saying.
Yeah.
It seems like part of that might be almost diminishing the suffering that is created from people that make foul choices, like the Nazi example. You know what I mean? Is it diminishing all the suffering that's created from people making those foul choices, or is it maybe just maybe that's
sure
maybe that's maybe that's being too superficial, not seeing the bigger picture or something? I mean, how would you answer that stuff?
That's a hard question. Yeah, I think as far as like I don't know if I have, and I feel like it might be possible to do both, which has been my answer quite a few times, right? So to look at it from because I think we have a humanistic bias and a humanistic perspective.
Okay.
Right, that views humanity as powerful and central and important.
Okay.
And through that lens, then we are not going to diminish these suffering events, right?
Yeah.
But through a lens of universal understanding or universal connection, we can diminish that, and those things don't have to contradict because they are
not of ultimate importance.
Yeah.
In the kind of non-human lens. Sort of.
Yeah.
Sorry if I interrupted.
No, I think you were adding to my
following.
For sure.
Do you think we're capable of getting out of that human lens? Because it seems like even our perception and our perspective is almost inextricably human. You know what I mean? Because we're going to see through human eyes. We're going to think with a human brain.
Yeah.
Or however thoughts work.
Yeah.
But like, can we actually take that lens, or is it sort of an impossible task because we're inextricably human?
I think I don't think it's possible to reach the ultimate goal of an unbiased lens of humanism, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that it is possible to improve.
Okay.
And so I think it's not an unworthy goal.
Yeah.
Because we can. I think right now we are entirely as a society, too focused, too biased towards human needs or human affairs, sure. And so I think especially now, it would be worthy to
extract yourself.
Yes, and notice that perspective and do what we can to provide a perspective that isn't.
How does that process look? Would you just be taking the perspective of a sort of a pure physics sort of perspective, like you're just seeing things as a state of molecular and
no
atomic?
I think it's
interaction?
more of a system perspective. That's the problem with science, I think, is that it looks too small, and I think we need to look bigger.
Is it like the third eye?
What do you mean by that? Like,
I don't know. It's just like a spiritual concept of like the third eye. I mean, it's super convoluted and connotated with all kinds of stuff we don't need to talk about. But I just thought maybe that you'd resonate with it somehow. But so it's not that. So it's not that.
No, I think it's well, maybe to some extent. I mean, I don't really understand the concept, but that does sound like it could be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very. I have limited understanding, but yeah, I think it's almost like what we want to do is feel. We actually do still want to feel. We just want to feel not from a human perspective, but from a planetary or universal perspective.
So, is it planetary or is it universal?
I think by feeling from a planetary perspective, you are also feeling from a universal perspective.
Okay, so we're taking the identity of the planet, sort of like this is who we are, and I'm sort of a planet person. Like I'm sort of identifying with the planet in comparison to the other planets, or something like that. Or is that a little bit too crude?
That's too. I don't really see. Yeah, no. It is. It's more like.
Like trying to. So is it just like ultimately universal? Like trying to take the lens of like this sort of endless expanse of space that might not be like ultimately endless, but is it like sort of taking the spatial perspective?
Because
like
I think that here's my qualm with that. While that could be accurate, we don't have enough knowledge or understanding to grasp that perspective very well. So
what kind of knowledge would we need?
That's a hard question for me to answer because it's the unknown.
Yeah.
So, but I think like what I can answer is what we do have about the planet, right? I think like the planet currently, humans have like an understanding of the systems across the planet, and an understanding of a sense of attachment or connection to it in a way that we don't with the rest of the universe. And I think that could be valuable in trying to see from that perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is cross-culturally felt.
Well, I guess in that sense, like when you say we kind of came from the planet, like the planet gave birth to us in some cosmic sense?
No. I just think that our life experience, personally, has been connected to the planet. You mean like each individually, or you mean as a race?
As like a human race.
Yeah, I think maybe you could almost argue it personally, like that we have some connection to planet Earth, just as you do to your home or to your family, because not because you chose to, but because it mothered you in some senses, right?
Yeah.
And
so there's a connection to the Earth.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, like, would there ever be a justification to, like, I don't know, like kill a large swath of people for the sake of maintaining the Earth or something?
No. And that's a good question, because we are dealing with questions of population currently, right? That's almost a current thing.
Yeah.
But
because what if we say no, like, are we taking the human perspective too? Like,
no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do understand what you mean.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to trap you.
And I also just want to add that I really have to go, so I'm going to answer this and then I'm going to go.
Yeah, that's cool.
But not that I really have to go, but I have other things.
Yeah, it's alright. It's okay to be done.
So, but this is a really interesting question, and I wish I could just talk or talk. But I don't think. Maybe I do, actually. Oh.
Maybe you do what?
Ah, dang it. This is hard. I was going to say that, so your question was, is there ever an excuse to kill a large swath of humans for the benefit of the planet, right? And I was going to say no, but then I realized that my arguments were mostly from a human perspective and not from a planetary perspective.
Well, like when you tried to argue for why it was
Yeah. And so
that was kind of the question I was trying to raise.
Yeah, because like my arguments are focused on, like, I could say that's wrong because so actually I can give you a little bit of background because they're just into some of the things that I'm interested in, which are like mostly human health and population health. And so like a lot of people think that overpopulation is hurting humans, but that's not true. It's hurting the planet. And more people generally increases your economy, increases lifespan, increases quality of life, increases like lots of important human health metrics. And I want to argue that human health metrics will equate to planetary health metrics, but I don't know that I can. You know, maybe I could, but that is more discussion that I think is not for.
Well, that's a good question to go away wrestling.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much.
I really
Ethan.
enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah.